beginning of a series of games. So let's say that you're on a soccer team. Well, there's winning the game, but the game isn't the issue. The game is the whole series of games. So maybe the game is winning the championship. And winning the championship and winning a game are not the same thing. And the reason for that is, well, maybe if you want to win a game, the best thing to do is to let your star player make all the moves. But if you want to win a championship, maybe the best thing is for your star player to do everything he or she possibly can to develop all the other team members. That's a different strategy. And the reason it's different is because it iterates across time. Okay, so I'll tell you a quick story. So when my kid was playing hockey, when he was about 12 or so, he was in a championship game, just at a local arena, you know. And it was really fun to watch. The teams were pretty equal, which is something that you want, so that everybody can expand their skills while they're playing. And it was like 5 seconds to the end of the game, and the other team made a breakaway and came down. The guy came down the ice and scored. It was a beautiful goal, and it was 4-3, and that was the end of it, right? And on my kid's team, there was the kid who was the star, and he was a pretty good hockey player. He came off the ice, and he was very annoyed about what had happened. He smashed his stick on the cement and was complaining about the refereeing and acting as if he'd been robbed. And his father came up, and instead of saying, "Get your act together, kid, that's no way to display yourself after a loss," he said, "Oh yeah, man, you were robbed, that the referees didn't ref right, and you played the best, and you should have won." And I thought, you
Son of a gun.
You're ruining your son. And then the question is why? Because his son was the star and was trying to win. Why was he ruining his son? Well, you're trying to train your son not to win the game. You're trying to train your son to win the championship. And so that's a series of games. But then life isn't the championship. Life is a whole bunch of championships. It's a whole sequence of them.
All right. So, I chose to use that as a attention piece because the way that he presents in the podcast is he presents that that analogy as a way of education for the growth of youth, and that was a great way to be used during podcasting. So today I'm going to be introducing you guys to 3 different types of podcasting. The reason I wanted to do this is because I have a lot of first-hand experience with podcasting. I've watched a lot of different podcasts, from political podcasting to health podcasting to educational podcasting, and so I thought that it would be a really great subject for a lot of people because it goes over a whole slew of different styles of whatever the information is. However, I'm going to be focusing on 3 today with the with political, educational, and health. The reason I chose those 3 is because it'll help to inform you guys on how to live a more well-rounded political life, a more educated life, and a healthier overall life. So, first off, I'll quickly be defining what podcasting is and the history, a slight history of podcasting, just basically who started it, not going into all the different ways of when it first started, what different ways you can find it. But podcasting, as defined by Podcast One, is a method in which users who are interested in audio or video files can subscribe to a feed so that new podcasts can be automatically obtained. Podcasts are composed of various episodes of media files. The history of podcasting was started by Adam Curry and Dave Weiner in 2004. And my first point is going to be starting on political podcasting. And when you listen to political podcasting, it'll help to give you a more well-rounded overall life in knowing what each side kind of thinks, because today a lot of things are politics, with border wall, with immigration, with healthcare and all that sort of stuff. So to be able to understand what both sides think, it's good to know what kind of political podcasts there are. The first history of political podcasting, according to a journal by Morgan Olson, it seems to have come about in 2005, starting with Slate's Gabfest. And the reason that we have political podcasting is because they can be used to inform, to make money, entertain, often with satire and humor, to advocate for a cause, or kind of get a overall branching of different types like that, or different mix of those reasons. A few political podcast hosts is Louder with Crowder, who's a right-leaning political podcast hoster. As Professor Kirkham said earlier in the semester, Ben Shapiro, who had spoken at Berkeley, the Young Turks, and Pod Save America, who are both on the left-leaning side of the aisle. And now that I've explained why listening to political podcasts can kind of help you to give a well-rounded overall life, let me introduce you to educational podcasts and how that can improve your life. It can improve your life because it can make you educated in different subjects like science, math, overall education, and it's just a great big slew of knowledgeable things, such as when I had shown you the video of Jordan Peterson talking with Joe Rogan about how to help grow kids in a long-form educational style with the analogy of sports. When looking into the history of educational podcasting, you can't really find a starting point. However, if you look at many of them, they have their starting points, whether it's within 5 years of podcasting first starting in 2004, or more recent podcasts in 2017 and 18. One Education podcast run by Mike Washburn and Glenn Irvin claim that their purpose to their podcast is to talk about teachers, teaching, and all things in between. As well as Science Friday claims that their podcast is a source for entertaining stories about science, technology, and other cool objects. Some educational podcast hosts, like I said, were Joe Rogan with Jordan Peterson, Adam Carolla, in which it's a weekly home improvement podcast, and as I explained previously, One Education and Science Friday. Now that I've explained why listening to educational podcasts can be helpful with having a more educated life, let me introduce you to health podcasts and how that can improve your life. It can do so because it can give you an understanding of many different ways to be healthy. That like both physically and mentally. As before, when looking into it, you can't really find a starting point, so you kind of have to go based off of whatever one that you see. You can go all the way back to when they first started, and that's where you can find their start. Some political podcast hosts are Adam McDougall with the Health Hacker, where he talks about hacking our lives to become smarter with the food that we eat, the money that we spend, and just the overall time that we don't have much of in our days. Kimberly Snyder on the right side with the Feel Good podcast, who offers info, insight, and practical tools to help us develop a lifestyle that can be healthy, whole, and healing. And Rosie Mansfield in the middle with Food Hacker, who talks about how we can redesign how we eat as she tries to inspire us to get into the kitchen by creating simple meals and easy ways to cook them. Simply being introduced to just these three styles of podcasting, we can find how podcasting can improve our overall daily lives. When we look back, we find that it has the ability to improve our lives by making us more well-rounded politically, educating our lives by having various knowledgeable subjects, and how podcasts are able to help us understand different ways of having a healthier life. Imagine what other possibilities there are in the landscape of podcasting that could improve your lives and possibly help you find a new passion that you didn't think you might have. Thank you.
Shouldn't be a problem.
Can I go after? Signed you out.
Oh, okay. All right, Andrew, what did you think?
I thought it was a very good speech, purpose statement, which was informing about podcasting. Yeah, found that fairly clear. Good. What was it? Blank here.
It's okay, you can tell me
Yeah.
stuff. It's all good.
No, I'm trying to conduct my own words here. Your sources. Yes, that's what it is. I'm sorry, I'm blanking out here. Yes, good sources. Shoot, I don't know what else to say.
Did you have opinion about the visuals?
I like the visuals, possibly maybe put in maybe a cover for their podcast instead of just the presenter themselves.
All right. I think that you've got a good general thesis, although you actually do a little bit more than just identify the different kinds of podcasts, because you do give us some background on podcasts also. So your preview needs to be a little bit more complete, but you did lay out what the main issues were going to be, and that was fine. In the body of the speech, it was easy to follow as well. I thought they were pretty straightforward transitions. Sometimes they could have been a little bit more clever, but they were definitely clear, and they were pretty smooth also. I'd agree with Andrew. I thought there was a lot of good citation of information in the body of the speech. You provided us with sources on a lot of things. The visuals, this is maybe where there's a little bit of an issue here and there. Excuse me. I think your opening video is too long. It's almost 2 minutes in length. And you don't tell us what's going on, why we're looking at this, and what it is we should be listening to. And I think that probably need to be prefaced a little bit. And even then, it's still too long. 2 minutes is a long time. That's a quarter of your speech. So, and it's at the beginning, so before we even know what the subject is. So people aren't sure what it is that we're supposed to be getting out of this visualization. I think it would be easy to introduce and simply say, you know, here's a well-known philosopher, psychologist Jordan Peterson talking with Joe Rogan on his podcast about raising children. And then you run the clip, maybe a shorter version of the clip, or find a place to stop it. You know, but it's you know, it's a long idea also, so that's a little bit of a problem. And then we would know why it is that we're looking at this sort of thing. It's about the subject. The pictures of the podcasters are okay. They're not necessarily as interesting as maybe something about the podcast would be. You know, like you mentioned, there are right-leaning and left-leaning podcasts. There are podcasts that emphasize lifestyle issues that you mentioned at one point. You know, only a couple of the visuals of pictures of people seem to have anything to do with their podcast. I don't remember the name of the woman who does the podcast on cooking, but it looked like there was actually flour and cooking things involved in her picture. Everything else was just a picture of people. And I don't know, you know, that's not a bad thing, but it doesn't tell me much about what the podcast is like. And there are other ways to do that sort of thing. You know, you rush through some information because I know you're trying to get to the main point. So you introduce the two people who created podcasting, but you don't tell us anything about them and how it is that they did that and why it was important. So that just felt a little bit like it's a perfunctory piece of information that hasn't been figured out why is it important to the things that you're going to be talking about. But I thought you had some good examples there, and basically your visuals, what they do is they organize the categories that you have for us, and that's okay. Like I said, I just think they could be a little bit more compelling. All right, thank you.